Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes Light and Shadow is the 12th game in this series. It aims to remake Mystery of the Emblem for the Super Famicom with gameplay mechanics and all the characters established from Shadow Dragon, but absent in the original game, plus new chapters and villains which Marth will have to face by himself. Why? Because we're going to find out if Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem can be beaten with only Marth. I am going to assume that you know the rules, but in case you don't, I'll quickly run through them. Number 1, the difficulty is set to hard 1. Number 2, Marth can only move and attack, rest will be immobile and armless. Number 3, Marth can only use items, no stars will be used. Number 4, units that are forced onto the team will abide by rule 2. 5, chapters 1 to endgame will be played in chronological order. 6, this will be played on an emulator so I can capture footage that does not look like it's from 2006. 7, save states are allowed. Regarding the 6th rule stated, the ROM is a legitimate copy of the game imported from Japan. I do this as I don't condone piracy, and to ensure that the game is not altered in any way. Don't believe me? That's right. I'm dumping my genuine copy that I got from Japan of Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem. So there's no reason for this video to be taken down. Isn't that right, Marth Plush? Even if this video gets taken down, I have the last laugh because that means that everything is canon. Everything that I do here, everyone that Marth kills is canon. What? Now the rules have been established and Plush Marth agrees with my morals, it is time to find out if Fire Emblem, New Mystery of the Emblem, can be beaten with only Marth. Chapter 1, A Grustian Pledge. When Marth arrives in Grust, he meets Lang, a cruel general, who informs Marth to finish the job and kill the surviving ruffians. Since we're now committed, it's best just to take out these rebels and hope we can sort something out. Before starting on, to point out the design of the map was later used for Fire Emblem Awakening's paralogue chapter, The Dead King's Lament. So if it looks familiar, that's the reason why. If you think that this chapter is going to be a walk in the park, in stark contrast to Shadow Dragon's first chapter, you are correct! Until he realizes that Marth is not a bullet sponge, and if he survives against a gang of barbarians, does that mean he'll survive the hunter's bow. So watch out for him, and be sure to make good use of danger zones. I would recommend heading to the cave before provoking any of the barbarians and the hunter, as there is a thief that is itching for a fight if you try and take his bullion. If Marth prevails against the barbarians, the thief, and the hunter, it is time to take up the rebels near the castle. The best strat is just to wait in the fort while making sure Marth has max HP, as those rebels can pack a punch, especially if Marth does not automatically heal each turn and does not have better evasiveness in defense. With a tiny bit of luck, Marth prevails, and it's time to head to Lorenz. And I thought he died in Shadow Dragon, plus I insulted him with Hugo Martin. Oh well, that doesn't mean Marth can make quick work of him with a crit and with sheer luck from the rapier. As Marth is here for glory, not for fun. After dealing with the rebels, we find Jubileo and Yulia. He is scared as Marth killed Lorenz. Lang enters, arresting the 2 innocent children. He states that they're going to be executing for defying Grust, and tells Marth his next objective is to rescue Minerva, as there is another rebellion in Medon. Marth reluctantly obliges after failing to convince him to not kill those children. Chapter 2, Rebellion at Medon. At Medon, Marth learns that Minerva is held captive by Like's followers, and Katria is nowhere to be seen. So he must save Minerva and a squadron, as they may be captive or in danger. First off, trying to advance if this is not a playthrough is a bad idea. If the hunters and soldiers don't kill Marth, the cavaliers will make quick work of him, since 2 of them have amazingly high attack output as they both wield silver swords. Your best option is to cower at the southwest and hope that Marth can deal with all the units, especially those 2 with the silver swords. It took me 1 attempt to do this, and Marth ended up with 1 HP at the end. Therefore investing in vulneraries is always a good idea, as Marth would have had to deal with the Wyvern Riders with 1 HP, unless he camps in forts for a million turns. When fully healed, Marth can take out the 2 Wyvern Riders and Luma with ease. However, he'll likely end up with nearly no HP, so it's a good thing that the army has been routed and it's safe to seize the castle. After freeing the captives, we find Lindy. She claims that she was caught while trying to find Marth to give him this. That's right, Lindy was going to give us the Fire Emblem if she was not caught up with Medon forces. Lindy says that Nina wanted him to have it, and Marth asks why. Lindy simply states that all she knew was that Nina's heart is shattered, and she was not up for talking. She simply cried when Lindy asked her why Marth should have the Fire Emblem, and what was going on. With the Fire Emblem in Marth's possession, chests may be opened without chest keys or master keys. Chapter 3 Stolen Princess. My goal is simple. Just get the bridge key from this unassuming girl in the village near the vertical drawbridge and use it to allow Marth to get across the large river, and Shackles is here. And he threatens Like to give him Minerva. Like forfeits her, and they both fly away. Well, don't mind me while I draw the bridge. Maybe after the Cavaliers take the west route, and they pass the shortcut, which requires the bridge to be drawn. The reason why is that Marth can get overwhelmed. Also, since the Cavaliers divide into smaller groups, it's a good idea to take them out before proceeding. Now it's time to get to Like and finish his men around him. Like has good defense and attack, partly due to the fact he holds the Taurus shard. So be aware of your surroundings and remember that fighting him boils down to sheer luck, as Like managed to evade 2 steel sword attacks in one turn, but then gets hit by a critical steel sword strike in the next turn. Now that his health is low, deal the finishing blow, get the Taurus shard and seize the castle. After seizing, Lang tells us that his castle was invaded, and the captive children have been stolen. He tells us to find the criminal responsible for this, and give him back the children for their execution. You know what, I'm tired of seeing Marth get bullied doing unjust causes. It's time to step in and give him a piece of my mind. I put my foot down and sternly state that Marth will no longer do any of your slimy, despicable acts. And Jagan steps in as well, emphasizing my point. Marth is shocked, but he does agree with what we're saying. Lang is disgusted for Marth disobeying him and leaves to report this to Gawain, convinced that he's not going to like the sound of this. Chapter 3X Lurking Shadows. Oh, poor Reese. A humble curate has been cornered by a group of assassins led by Clarice, one of the 3 assassins after Marth. Before the fight, Katarina meets up with Clarice. She says that she's nervous about my well-being and kindly asks Clarice to not be too rough on poor James. Clarice says that all of Marth's followers should kick the bucket for the corruption they're spreading, as he betrayed Gawain, particularly his strategist. She clearly states that Marth is a walking jester, and it makes sense that somebody called Jobby James would follow someone like him, as he's very likely unaware due to his bluntness and his unpopularity. That's it, it's time for Marth to get to the castle to show what happens when you mess with him. This chapter's not that hard, as archers don't deal that much damage and the knights are easily killed with any sword. Although Reese does not have the luxury of fighting, and thus couldn't deal the assassins, unlike Marth. As Marth advances and starts to clear out all the enemies, Clarice gets impatient and says, "Ugh, Marth has taken so long. I have many better things to do, and I'll leave it to you guys to put him down." You did a good job guarding that castle, Clarice. Can't wait to see you guard another one. Since her assassins are as weak as Play-Doh, and no one is guarding the castle, we might as well let ourselves in and seize it. Well, I've said regarding Clarice's performance at guarding the castle is something that you would expect from someone who embraces full-on narcissism to a point that a noble prince is seen as mere scum, just because they don't have a child called Clarice Pie. Meanwhile, Clarice states to Katarina that she may have underestimated Marth's power, and she's going to let him live for a little longer. Katarina tried to warn her about Marth's strength beforehand. That does not matter, she's not going to give up. She is devising a new strategy that will catch Marth off guard. Chapter 4 Joy and Sorrow. The children once sentenced to execution are just over yonder, with Ogma guarding them. However, he fails to guard them and they're killed by Medon ruffians, so he must avenge them as there's no way of saving them with only Marth. It's as simple as advancing around the mountains, while making sure that Marth does not take unnecessary damage from the hunters, but most of the time is just spent placing Marth over and over until he reaches Sirius. He does not advance, and he looks somewhat familiar. Oh well, that does not matter if he's dead, as you'll soon find out that he didn't advance as Marth instantly kills him with 2 strokes of the steel sword, and keep placing Marth until he gets to the castle. The boss Gale is also easily dealt with the steel sword as well, on the account of his low defense. With the castle seized, we are alerted as Altio is attacked by Achaea. The castle has fallen, and many of its knights have escaped or have been laid to rest. Marth is surprised that Achaea would launch an attack, and promises to take down Gawain just to get Altio back, and to make sure his evil reign is no more. Chapter 5 Breaking the Grustian Shackles. After the disturbing news, it is time to invade Oldburn Castle, which is guarded by Troff, the Ballistian, and to stop the despicable Lang located on the castle's throne. However, they have influenced George to fight by their side, but they seem to be protesting. They are remaining stationary, and are not willing to fight anyone unless they are threatened. To start, it's best to take one pure water and head to the forts, as the two mages aren't gonna go easy on Marth. And Marth's base resistance is 0, so any way of increasing resistance with stat modifiers is vital. It is best to wait in the forts for one of the mages to approach Marth and take them both out before they can kill him. And would you believe I told you that was the hardest part of this chapter?
No.
Well, you're in luck because it is! Unless you're challenging George. I also want to point out that I'm taking the northern route so that Marth can level up quicker. Taking the shorter route to the castle will mean that it'll take fewer turns and battles to get there, so Marth won't gain as much experience, as he's not killing as many units. Popping into the armory is a good idea, as they sell steel swords, and the vendor is the best source of stacking out invulneraries and door keys, as the Fire Emblem cannot open doors, only chests. With that, Troth is easily killed with the Iron Sword, and might as well kill any remaining units around the castle so Marth can increase his experience, while not risking his life. When the only remaining units are the ones with George, just seize the castle. There's no point fighting him, as he's not willing to fight unprovoked. With the castle seized, it's time to enter the castle and face off against Lang. Chapter 6: Evil's Den. All burned castle is all that's left of Grust. Lang, the unforgiving commander of the opposing army, is known for ruthlessly killing the innocent and taking young children, so it's time to stop this tyranny for a better future. Before I start, I figured that Marth might benefit from some experience in the Colosseum. Looking at the forecast, it seems like he might prevail. Hesitantly I quit back, and without thinking I engage the general who takes no damage from Marth's Iron Sword.
You cannot beat me!
That did not go as planned. What does it mean?
It means that you should read any messages and warnings which appear before accepting them, as I decide to skip through menus and then end up getting lost in the dark as I was not paying any attention to the dialogue boxes and warnings. I decided to fight again, and Marth leveled up to level 26, only 4 more levels before reaching his max, and his resistance stat needs to increase if he's going to fare better against tome users. But that does not matter for now, as Lang has deployed Nabarl to help him guard the castle. He is a skilled warrior of the blade and does not mess around. The issue with this chapter is that there are units with ranged weapons which Marth cannot counterattack, but I have a plan to solve this issue. Remember my technique which I used to deal with the Riven Riders in Shadow Dragons chapter 15? Because it's best to use it here, by making Marth stand so that the Knight with the Javelin forces the Mage and the other Western units to fight Marth up close, so he can cleanly finish them off with a counter-attacking Steel Sword. And look who it is, it's Frey and Norn, 2 humble Knights of Altair, who were last seen when Marth was exiled. Frey was there as a substitute for Marth to ensure his clean getaway. It's sad that they'll never see Marth again, as the reinforcements will target them until they're dead. While the reinforcements are distracted, head to Ricard in the chest room, but before opening the chest, stun one tile above it, until the only unit left is the unit attacking Marth at a range, and any remaining archers, as they probably won't move any closer if they cannot initiate a battle. Kill Ricard for the VIP card, and open the chest for the sack of bullion. But watch out for the bishop with Swarm, as it can deal some serious damage if Marth's resistance is less than 5. In one of my attempts, Marth was killed by Swarm, as I was not paying attention to his HP and resistance. The problem is that Marth needs to open the chest containing the Libra Shard, which increases luck. The Swarm Bishop can hurt Marth if he's close to the chest, and Marth is not able to kill these units as he does not have a ranged weapon like the Levin Sword. Open the left door to reveal Nabarl. He has a killing edge, but he's no match for Marth's pure strength. Wait. What? Who's this? Imposter Nabarl? Oh well, I did believe he was sus anyway. When killed, Samuel drops the Aquarius Shard, which increases magic and resistance. And better repeat the cheese strat for the 3rd time to force the bishop to fight Marth up close and for them to get killed by his counter-attacking blade. With luck and vigilance he can deal with all the units in the throne room, and it's time to boot off Lang as he's not willing to listen to anyone, especially not someone who is trying to overthrow Gawain. Well, if he's going to fight Marth, all it takes is 2 armor slayer strokes to make quick work out of a heavily armored unit like him. With Langar, we meet up with Wendell, who has suffered from some serious injuries. He states that the astral shards we have been collecting are reported to rebuild the Star Sphere. If at least one of them went missing, the whole world will fall into irreversible devastation. Marth takes it upon himself to find all these shards, so the Star Sphere can be rebuilt. He'll keep a sharp eye out for any other spheres on the way. Chapter 6X Hired Help. Before I start, the only way of accessing this side quest is to either recruit Ricard, which is impossible with only Marth, or complete this chapter within 24 turns. So I played that chapter again, this time immediately heading to the right door and going straight to Lang, ignoring the other units in the process. Since I didn't get the Libra shard and the Aquarius shard, any stat changes and items which Marth gets in this chapter and the previous chapter will not be applied in future chapters. Next time I'll point out when I must do this, but for part 1 this is the only time I will do this. It seems that the Assassin Legion has hired mercenaries Caesar and Rad to kill Marth. He discussed with Clarice that these two tried to help Marth in the previous war, and is convinced we'll do a good job at putting him down. Clarice does not care in the slightest and was only checking in so she does not risk her life. Okay then, Marth will confront both Rad and Caesar respectively and kill them both, alongside Legion's assassins. As the map is very small, most units are killed within the first and or second turn. Once all the assassins are gone, simply kill Legion with a crit and seize the castle. Meanwhile, we see Clarice sarcastically mourning Legion's decoy as she says, "Well, at least your fake made an attempt, Legion." Insulted, Legion denies that was a fake. He states that was his brother who fell. Clarice asks him if you're the real one. However, the one talking right now is only a brother to the real one. Legion also admits that Marth is very powerful, so the next time they meet, it'll be up against the real Legion, among his countless identical brothers. Chapter 7 The Scarlet Sword. We are at the south of Chasmere Bridge, on a quest to find a piece of the Star Sphere alongside the other spheres. Marth discovers that Nabarl and Fina are hiding in the forest as they are cornered by ruffians, and Fina can't take it seriously that they're both gonna die in the forest by a bunch of unsavory thieves. Don't assume that Nabarl and Fina can be saved, because Marth can't reach them in time due to how far away they are, and Marth suffers from a movement penalty for each time he crosses a forest tile. There is no way he can reach them in time before they both perish. The good thing is that one of the thieves has the Scorpio Shard, so be sure to head north through the forest and catch him before he leaves. Once the Scorpio Shard has been obtained, it's at this point Marth has reached his maximum level. If any of his current stats are not glowing green, they can only increase to use his stat boosting items or single use stat modifiers. Also, watch out for mages, as they will deal a significant amount of damage if Marth fails to evade an attack, as his base resistance is still 0 after reaching level 30. I shouldn't be very angry, as the hunters can't deal any damage to Marth, and units with non-ranged weapons quickly get killed if they try to confront him. However, more mages will appear from the forest, and since Marth has reached his max level, it's best just to head to the castle and deal with the boss. Del wields a Levin sword, so it's best to get close and personal to ensure that he does not ever land a hit with it, as he drops it upon defeat, and Marth makes Levin swords break as if they're glass swords, as his magic stat remains 0 unless he uses spirit dust or modifies his magic stat with magic tonics. Exaggeration is one way to put it. That kind of mindset is important if you don't want to end up realizing how important it was after it just broke. So you're better off seizing the castle rather than testing it out on the remaining units in hot pursuit. Jargon investigates the fate of Raman. Alas, the thieves have plundered most of its goods, and all is left is the smoking ruins of where it once stood. Jargon also informs us about Naga's tale. To keep it brief, Naga saved her people from vile beings that spread destruction by sending a hero that held a divine blade and a sacred shield with 5 orbs. He vanquished the evil and was later ascended to become the one who became our shield, the one who became our god. Jargon also states that Marth should cross Chasmere Bridge before the enemy forces completely block off their escape route. Chapter 8 The Bridge of Despair. Since the enemy is fast approaching, we should cross Chasmere Bridge to escape. But the enemy was one step ahead, as Marth is now cornered in the middle of the bridge.
Can someone lend me a hand?
With Aconian forces blocking both ways. We must get to the castle up north and seize it before Gawain sends any more of his men to neutralize Marth. Unlike Shadow Dragon's Chapter 18, which is what this map is based on, Marth starts at the center of the bridge, with enemy forces down south and up north, as opposed to having Marth start up north with the enemy forces located down south and in the middle of the bridge. The castle's also been relocated to be up north, to the far west where Marth starts in Shadow Dragon. So Marth better leg it to the castle, as Gawain's forces mean business and gonna make a Marth mince meat in a matter of mere minutes. But not so fast. You do want to rebuild the Star Sphere, don't you? As one of the thieves down south has the Leo Shard, so better get him before he leaves, assuming you want to rebuild the Star Sphere. But, despite my best efforts, he is always at least one tile too far for Marth to catch up, and Marth cannot be relocated during preparations, so he's not so far away. Without the Leo Shard, that will mean that we cannot restore the Star Sphere, and just like severely injured Wendell said, if at least one of the shards went missing, the whole world will fall into irreversible devastation. Unless if he used the Levin Sword! The only way of killing the thief is for Marth to head down south as early as possible and kill the thief with the Levin Sword before he escapes. And better head up north once you retrieve the Leo Shard. There will be some very tough generals appearing around Gawain on turn 7. As Marth heads towards the castle, it seems that mysterious Gawain finally introduces himself and is not going to let us pass. Am I correct in saying that, Sir Gawain? Wait a minute, you look just like that knucklehead I know. Insulted Gawain makes it clear that he does not seem surprised that I would say such things, considering that Marth, Jagan and I betrayed him. With a stubborn attitude, he insists that Marth will die on this bridge, but believing that a rebellious individual like him will bring this whole world to ruin if he is not stopped. Man, this guy really needs to chill out, and Marth needs to understand the consequences of his conquest, so I'm getting the impression that Gawain isn't supposed to be here. Gawain also boasts about being impenetrable to Marth's attacks.
Do you actually believe your attacks can affect me?
Yes.
He is not wrong, as he holds the Dark Sphere, an unholy orb that completely negates all weapons from axes to tomes and everything in between, and the generals that appear around him are much stronger than Marth. Killing him is out of the question. But that does not matter, as the generals and Gawain aren't guarding the castle, but George and his snipers are. The only way of counterattacking them is with the Levin Sword, so don't waste the Levin Sword on them, as no shops sell them in this game, other than the online shop that went bust 8 years ago after this video's release. George does not move as he guards the castle, so you ought to kill him by getting up close and initiating attacks until he's dead. Upon his death, Marth gets the Parthia, which is useless, and the Sagittarius Shard, which is useful, and seize the castle. Preferably before Gawain's forces can overwhelm Marth. Chapter 9, The Dried Oasis. Marth manages to escape from Chasmere, and his long journey led him back to Kadin, a land once renowned for its advanced magic and seasoned mages, but the disruption of the Orbs' absence has neutered the magic the land once had, with skilled bishops and spellcasters few and far between. As Marth arrives, we witness Mishalis flying to the northeastern village. He talks to Minerva, who has physically recovered from being kidnapped. Mishalis says despite his hatred towards Marth, he believes that Minerva would benefit teaming up with the blue-clothed prince. Mishalis would help if it weren't for the fact that his only goal is to find Maria and reunite what is left of the family. Minerva is surprised that Mishalis broke free of Garneth's influence. Mishalis denies this claim and states that he sided with Garneth hoping to backstab Dolina after conquering Achaea with the help of Camus. Their father's death was caused by his anger for dismissing this ambition. Minerva is upset that Mishalis did all this, as she just wanted to be a happy family, but that did not happen. Also, Achaean forces are in hot pursuit, so you better make it quick and snappy. Shadow Dragons Chapter 15, which is what this map is based on, had a talisman in one of the chests. This time it has boots. The chest that had an energy drop now has the Capricorn Shard. Opening the chest is optional in Shadow Dragon. In New Mystery of the Emblem, you must get the Capricorn Shard from one of the chests, as it's one of the missing Astral Shards. The only problem is that the Dragoons have transformed into a bunch of thieves. If you're too slow to get to the village, it will be destroyed. If you're able to catch the thief that steals it from one of the chests, that is one of the shards gone. Did I tell you that Minerva has the Virgo shard? Because if you truly mess up, that means you'll miss 2 shards. So I developed this flawless plan to get the 2 shards. Steal the boots from the chest down south and use them to run up north. Perhaps that takes too many turns. The only option I have left to take the shortest route to the village before the thieves... Oh no, this time Marth cannot reach the village before the thieves can destroy it, let alone kill any of them before they arrive at said village. So the world's future will be a miserable one. Or the thief could just stand there and not destroy it? What? Okay, you know what? Don't question it. Recruit Minerva and ask her to lend her Vigro shard and kill the thief that stole the Capricorn shard. And don't forget the boots! They increase Marth's movement to 9. The only downside is that you have to face off against the prevalent Astram and the army of Akanir. But Marth is so powerful that Astram is just a delivery man who sacrificed himself as S did in the previous game. With the Mercurius attained, head towards the castle. Watch out for Etzel. That edgelord will freeze Marth to death if he's about a third of his max HP, as his attack is 19. And that is how much damage Marth will take unless he applies stat modifiers like the Virgo shard and or the Pure Water. To deal with Etzel and the remaining units, Marth needs to ensure that he does not take too many hits and has stable resistance. My strategy is very messy and requires way too much luck. I made Marth go down south and made all the mages and Etzel move to Marth's starting position, then ran up north to the eastern fort and hoped that Marth lucks out. His luck is capped much like his skill. After way too much trial and error, Marth evades enough attacks, so the only unit left is Etzel. Finally, I'm going to take him down with the Mercurius so he does not counterattack, and he can be with his late wife that he dedicated his GeoCities website to. The only units left are Yodel and the 2 Swarm Bishops that have been pestering Marth. Take out the 2 Swarm users first, then deal with Yodel. He will leave a serious dent in Marth if his Bolgan on spell hits. But he has low defense, so anything will easily kill him. Before seizing the castle, it's advisable to get pure waters for future chapters, which mostly consist of tome users. Silver swords are also a good idea to have, but due to my limited budget, haha broke prince, I didn't get any before seizing the castle. Once seizing, Marth informs me that Merrick is inside this castle. However, there may be some unusual occurrences involving the kind-hearted mage within the halls of this castle. Chapter 10 Bitter Rivals. Within the castle of Cadian, we find Merrick and Arlen fighting to each other's death. While Merrick wants to avoid conflict, Arlen ignores Merrick's words, as he's jealous that he was not entrusted with Excalibur, a mighty tome recognized for its high damage output and its unparalleled likelihood of scoring critical hits. Despite Merrick's plays, Arlen made a big brain play on Merrick, and he lost. So we got to show that the sword is mightier than the book to Arlen, and avenged poor Merrick who didn't even want to fight. I decided to take the right route, for some reason, and found out that doing this will likely result in Marth getting overwhelmed by mages,
This is bad.
as his base resistance is still 0. I still can't believe it never grew once when he leveled up, considering that it grew twice in Shadow Dragon, very early by the way, and yet the growth rate in that game is 2%, compared to 5% in New Mystery of the Emblem. Despite this buff, it did not grow at all. Not to mention that Arlen can and will move away from the throne if Marth is in range. So be sure to play it safe by taking the left route, as it decreases the likelihood of him being overwhelmed by mages, as the mages are more spread out to the left path than those to the right. If Marth takes out the mages one at a time, and does not let them crowd around him, he should be fine, so long as he does not have 0 resistance, including stat modifiers, and if he heals while escaping from any danger if his current HP is around half of his max. Since grinding only breaks swords as Marth is at level 30 and has maxed out his weapon level, he is better off giving Arlen a taste of his own vulnerary. Arlen can deal a decent amount of damage to Marth since he uses Thoron, a devastating lightning tome. But Marth deals 34 damage to Mercurius because Arlen must feel the pain that Merrick endured, both physical and psychological. Since no one else is on the throne, Marth might as well seize it. And hey, look at that! Since we didn't kill any of the innocent clerics, they gave us a silver card as a token of appreciation. That is very generous of them, as everything is 50% off at any store if Marth has this card in his inventory. we hear a voice not too dissimilar from Goto's. And hey, look who it is, it's the White Sage himself. Marth asks him what's the deal with Gawain. Why is he impenetrable to all weapons? Goto states that the power originates from the Dark Sphere, an unholy orb that greatly accelerates the strength of the person exposed to its power, harnessing the subject's negative thoughts. It's one of the 5 sacred orbs: Light Sphere, Star Sphere, Geosphere, Life Sphere, and the Dark Sphere. If Gawain holds it any longer, it will deteriorate their eternal soul and transform them into a monster. Goto also points out that the only way of defeating Gawain is with the power of the Light Sphere, as its reverse polarity nullifies the effects of the Dark Sphere. Goto has the Light Sphere and will be waiting in the Ice Dragon's temple for Marth's arrival. But Goto warns us that we must bring all the Astral Shards as well, as he can reconstruct the Star Sphere if he has them all. To get there we must cross Anri's Way, an unforgiving landscape where few survive, to prove ourselves worthy of these 2 orbs. Marth accepts this challenge, so it's time to cross Anri's Way to retrieve these 2 orbs. Chapter 10X, The Halls of Haunting Faces. Poor Horace, a simple man with a complicated past with Dolan and the Achaean League. Now he's cornered by Legion, and he's brought company as well. Legion states so long as the real one lives, the Legion brothers will just keep on coming. The thing about fighting Legion is that he does not deal that much damage and is easily killed by Marth. The same cannot be said for Horace. To complete this chapter, find the real Legion and kill him. Doing so is not that hard, as the map is very small and it does not take that many turns to sweep the place clean, so just work clockwise or counterclockwise around the halls while confronting any which don't move, and the real one will be ratted out sooner than you realise, and when the real one killed, there's the map accomplished. Well, we couldn't save Horace, but at least Legion has been taken care of, which means all those Legion brothers don't have anywhere to go, since their leader has been put out of commission, so they won't be an issue to us any longer. Meanwhile, Katerina reports this to her master, Eremiah. She shows no remorse to Katerina on the account of her shortcomings, and Clarice butts in to mock her for Legion's failure and sucks up to Eremiah, saying that she'll volunteer to end Marth, knowing that Eremiah sees Katerina as a useless puppet ever since her failed assassination during the graduation. Eremiah tasks Katerina to clean out the garbage, that being the Legion clones which survived, as she has shown that she can't get useful work done unlike Clarice, and someone who couldn't resist being praised for her hard work has to kick her sister in the mud once more to assert that she is the superior child in every way possible, and with that Clarice has the privilege of tracking down Marth to assassinate him. Looking at the video length, it's by time to wrap up part 1. Interestingly, playing New Mystery of the Emblem Willy Marth is much easier than in Shadow Dragon. Keep in mind Marth's starting stats and growth rates are much better in New Mystery of the Emblem than in Shadow Dragon, namely his speed stat. So he's more effective at evading attacks and is more likely to perform follow-up attacks. And not to mention that collecting those shards also helps. Not by much, but it's better than nothing. However, will his strength be able to find the Pieces shard, silence Gawain, not harden, collect all the spheres, and above all, stop this everlasting war? Well, I guess we have to see in part 2. And, before I go, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.